What really happened with your host, Mike Rivero, the history the government hopes you never learn. Here is your host, Michael Rivero.
And aloha, America. Welcome to our show today. It is Monday, July 29th, 2019, pretty much at the end of the month, getting into August. And of course, August is the last month we're going to be here in Hawaii. And we did have a nice weekend out on Kauai. Claire and I stayed with an old friend. And getting out there was very arduous. I mean, we both got TSA pre-check on our boarding passes, which is a bit of a giggle when you consider how critical I've been of TSA. And also coming back, we had TSA pre-check, but they didn't have the staff to open up that special line, so we had to go through the regular grope and crotch and thing on that as well. The landing in Lihue last Thursday, boy, was that rough. It was a turbulent flight, but that pilot wanged that aircraft onto that runway, and I swear, bottomed out the landing gear, put both Claire and my back into a mess here. So we rented ourselves a car, and we drove around up to the North Shore to the little town of Hanalei. And if you've seen the movie Descendants starring George Clooney, a lot of that was filmed in and around Hanalei. And so it is very lovely. They've recovered very nicely from the floods out there. You still cannot drive all the way out to the end of the road. You have to take a special shuttle. But they've got this Nene Preserve, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, Nene is our state bird, and it is a native Hawaiian goose. And Claire and I had only ever seen one once before, and that was down on Mauna Kea on the Big Island. But in Hanalei, they've got signs all over, careful, Nene crossing, and apparently they've mounted a program to sort of revive the population. So other than that, we just, Claire and I sort of retoured landmarks from our honeymoon of 25 years ago. And a lot of people there enjoyed our shirts that say, "We're not on drugs, we're newlyweds here." And we certainly had a much better time in Hanalei than they had down in Gilroy, California. Now, Gilroy, California is known as this major source for garlic, and they produce very good garlic. And if you ever drive through Gilroy, you will know immediately what business they're about in that town. And they were having the Garlic Festival, and this 19-year-old kid apparently cut through the fence to avoid the metal detectors, walked on in, and started shooting in random directions, killing 3 people, including a 6-year-old boy, before the police shot him dead. Now, early witnesses are saying that he had an accomplice. Now that is being denied. And this has all the hallmarks of being hastily put together. He had an Instagram account that was registered under his name that had been created recently. It's already been deleted. He bought the rifle. His name is Santino William Legan, and he bought the rifle legally in Nevada 3 weeks ago. And here's where you start to wonder just how accurate the reporting is on the story, because there was one quote in one of the articles that said the shooter had an assault-style rifle and appeared to shoot at random. Smithy said the SKS, an AK-47 type of rifle. Well, no, they're not even close. The SKS is a much longer rifle. It only holds 10 rounds, and it's probably closer to the old English Lee Enfield 303s. and the magazines are not interchangeable. When you do a reload, you literally have to sit there with a rifle in your hand, pushing 10 more bullets into the magazine. So already they're trying to up the wow factor and say, ooh, AK-47s, we've got to get rid of those AR-15s and those AK-47s. Those are assault weapons. Well, the SKS isn't considered an assault weapon. In fact, I imagine that probably a few people use it for hunting. Turning over to our domestic politics here, over the last 2 years, Dan Coats, the Director of National Intelligence, has sort of been locking antlers with President Donald Trump over the issue of whether or not there was Russian interference in the 2016 election. And so Trump has basically retired him or resigned him, but he's out. And yesterday, President Donald Trump said he would nominate Representative John Ratcliffe, a Texas Republican who strongly defended him at a recent congressional hearing, to replace Dan Coats as the U.S. spy chief. Well, there's one little tiny bit of the swamp that's out. Okay, we are going to do a shout out to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining our network, and a reminder that our phones are open, 800-313-9443. Mike is in our control room, ready to answer the phone, put you on there with your comments, questions, and opinions. So getting on back to the Dan Coats replacement, apparently Dan Bongino and Molly Hemingway are sensing rattled nerves in John Brennan's reaction to Trump's DNI nomination. See, when you're running a clique inside the hub of power, even losing just one of your members makes everybody feel insecure. So we'll see what happens there. Okay, let's talk about Jeffrey Epstein, because I'm not letting go of that one. The corporate media wants that story to go away. In fact, it's kind of interesting these days to see how much the corporate media repeats stories, because there's other stuff going on they don't want to talk about. Okay, let's before we get into Jeff Epstein, let's take a phone call. Steve Elkins, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Describe Gilroy pretty well. Within 20 miles of Gilroy, you definitely smell the business they're in of garlic, and this latest shooting smells bad.
Yes.
Other than the garlic itself, I noticed there was a woman that was interviewed, and I'm thinking there were some crisis actors in this, and I'm going to do a little more research myself. But she evidently somebody had yelled, either whether it was her or somebody else had yelled at the shooter who started shooting already, had yelled at the shooter, "Why are you doing this?" And which is not a response you would do when people start shooting. Somebody starts shooting, usually retreat and save yourself.
Yeah.
But to actually question somebody, and the person replies back saying, "Well, I'm very angry." It's not a normal response to question a shooter, an active shooter. You usually retreat and save yourself. So, I mean, something doesn't smell right here. I'm thinking we might have some crisis actors on the scene, some very bad ones. But definitely this is going to be a gun-grabbing agenda. And, of course, pointing to the AR-15 style weapon, semi-automatic, but this is definitely going to be a gun-grabber situation here.
Well, actually, they described it as an AK-47 style weapon. In any case, they're way, way off. If you know anything about the SKS, it's wholly inappropriate. Again, we have the magically disappearing accomplice that early witnesses reported on. And yeah, I mean, how long has it been since the Tropicana incident?
Right.
And so, this does feel like another one of these staged incidents. I don't know that they're going to get a lot of traction with it, because as tragic as it is, they've only got 3 bloody shirts to wave. And the American people are numb after all of these mass shootings. 3 dead. Whoa, we got off lucky on that one. Let's turn over to the sports channel.
Yeah. You know, an interesting thing is also he picked a time when actually the festival is coming to an end on Sunday, and to go in there at 5:30 when most people are have already left is quite interesting to the time. Normally, you would have picked probably a period of time where there were a lot more people, and that's a wind down time. I think the festival ends at 7, maybe 8 o'clock, and you start at 5:30.
Yeah,
going in doesn't make much sense there.
Yeah, at this point, I assume it's been another one of these staged events, and I want to know if this kid was on prescription psychiatric medication, antidepressants. I'd like to know if they're ever actually going to find the accomplice, and I'm going to say right now, probably not.
Well, they said this was a legal purchase from Nevada. I'd like to know, the cost of the weapon itself. Could he afford, a firearm of this cost? And, who funneled him the money, if that was the situation here, to purchase the firearm? We've seen the FBI do this before, find a disturbed person and kind of push them that direction and even give them the money to buy the firearm.
Yeah, we've seen that before many times with these kind of things. And again, the SKS is not really a high-end assault rifle. Does not have interchangeable magazines. It's a very long barrel, hard to move around. It's not really, it's a poor choice of a weapon.
Right. Well, that's it for me, Mike. Nice to have you back.
All right, thanks an awful lot. And trading some email with my mover about getting all this stuff sorted out. Okay. So we're talking about Jeffrey Epstein. And apparently there's now a link from Jeffrey Epstein to Charlie Rose, the now disgraced mainstay of CBS 60 Minutes for decades. Now, Rose was forced out from his comfortable mainstream media position in the aftermath of Me Too claims against him, alleging that the legacy media titan had made a habit of harassing and groping young women. Well, the newly emergent link is that apparently Jeff Epstein was providing female interns for Charlie Rose. And apparently Epstein has also been linked to the company behind Victoria's Secrets and various other brands like that. So it is a mess, and it is continuing to emerge. Now, a lot of people are saying it looks like one of the reasons that Epstein got such lenient treatment in Florida and became so wealthy is that his real business was sexual blackmail, and he's been doing it for decades. And Mint Press has come out with a story saying that Epstein is only the latest incarnation of a much older, more extensive operation started back in the 1950s by intelligence agencies, and it includes Roy Cohn, people like that. And all I can say is if you're somebody who's a major executive in a company, or you're a politician, you got to be out of your minds to even set foot in a place like that. You have to know you're going to get honey trapped. Honey traps are a very common aspect of political relations. Maybe they just don't care. Maybe being blackmailable is what makes you reliable and guarantees your career. They certainly don't want an honest politician in that office, one who can't be controlled. Maybe being filmed with an underage girl is a rite of passage into the upper levels of government. Ever think about that? Anyway, Kevin Shipp is out there saying the deep state wants Epstein gone, which may relate back to his maltreatment at his current prison. Now, the story is it's either a suicide attempt or he faked a suicide attempt to try and get into better prison accommodations. Apparently, when he was down in Florida, he had an entire wing of the county jail to himself. They were just treating him like royalty. But again, they are talking to this one other guy, this former police officer, who is an ideal candidate to be a hitman by remote control. And you really ought to take a look at the treatment of Jeff Epstein compared to Ramsey Orta, who's the guy who filmed Eric Gardner's murder. That's all he did. And he was grabbed by the police, and he's been thrown in jail, and he's being kept in solitary confinement. And they just buried him. Anyway, let's take a couple more phone calls here. Starting with Joe in Tennessee. Joe in Tennessee, aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hey, Mike. I think that SKS could be an SKS paratrooper, the carbine. So maybe you had one of them. Those are kind of pretty good weapon for something like that. But I wanted to talk about the Supreme Court and another example of Trump being forced to, not get funding because of the Rhino Republicans and then the Democratic Congress. What great leadership he showed in trying to get defense funds for building the wall, allow the Democrats to challenge it, and some leftist judge to put an injunction against it, and then take to the Supreme Court and win. And now we should have 100 more miles of wall being built using defense funds.
Yes.
And he'll probably get more on top of that, because now that the Supreme Court precedent is set, he can kind of move some money around like they usually do. I mean, Obama had no problem moving money around for his little pet projects, and they just tried to stop the wall. And Trump did great work, and he showed great leadership, as well as he did when he threatened Mexico with tariffs and got the Mexican army up on the border. So I think, I hear a lot of people complaining about Trump and the wall and all that. I think we should give him a few pats on the back, and just, to me, it shows that Trump is trying. I mean, he's fighting the deep state and fighting the left and the right, the rhinos and the neocons. Trump he does want to build that wall. So anybody that says he doesn't is not, they're lying to us. So I just want to, say that I'm impressed that, and people, that have become jaded and distrustful should kind of look back on it and say, yeah, the guy really is giving it his best shot at building this wall. And part of it is he knows in the 2020 election, he's going to have some of that wall built. And I think he's done a pretty good job considering the obstacles that have been put in his path.
Well, I don't agree. I think as a leader, as a president, he's been very ineffectual. And the fact that there's been all this thrashing around about all of this, I think underscores that. I mean, if the president can't get things done, if he can be blockaded by Congress and various special interest groups, then why do we bother voting for a president? We vote for a president because we want somebody who can go on out there, get the system into gear, and get something done. Now, the Supreme Court decision was a good thing. We were going to talk about it later in the show. And with that precedent set, Trump is going to have access to more money. What remains to be seen is what he does with it. And as we reported last week, a big part of the problem is much of that money is being spent just sort of rebuilding sections of the wall that have deteriorated, but so far no new wall has been built.
Yeah, but Mike, when you come in as a president, as an outsider, and you're going to fight against draining the swamp, and you got your rhinos in your own party, like Paul Ryan, you have the left, you have the media,
okay, Joe,
you have the neocon.
Joe, I have to put you on hold. Got to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're talking with Joe in Tennessee. And Joe, I get it. You're a big fan of Donald Trump. Every time you call on and you're out there saying, well, we got to give the guy credit for this and we got to give the guy, at least he's trying. At least he's trying. Well, we're not talking about a kid who's in Little League Baseball. We're talking about the President of the United States of America. You know, or to paraphrase Yoda, do or do not, there is no try. And the fact is that Trump, he's not a very good president. He's a very weak president. He's certainly no Lincoln. He's certainly no John Kennedy. He's certainly no Truman. Right now, as far as I'm concerned, he ranks down around Millard Fillmore somewhere.
Well, I'll tell you, Mike, why I get very frustrated and I call in to defend Trump. And that's because the alternate media that helped get him elected, I'm just surprised how they don't understand. I mean, everybody knows about what the Federal Reserve did to Kennedy and all these and the deep state. And here you get a president that comes in, he gets the deep state attacking him right off the bat with the phony Russia stuff. You have an attempted coup, you know, against him. That you have a guy that I don't think very many Republicans at all would have survived what he's been through. He's working on the wall, and everybody's like, oh, well, he doesn't really want the wall. He didn't get the wall. Well, meanwhile, you had Rhino, Paul Ryan, and now you have Nancy Pelosi. How do you expect him to get the wall? The only way he could get the wall is the way he's doing it and working with the men. I think he comes up. My point is he tries for the wall, but I really see, like in all the critics from the right, which I never really expected, that at the same time, you all know about the deep state. You all know about going up against the Federal Reserve and the media and all these things. Yet, as this man is attacked by them all the time, you never give him a minute of credit for going up in that fight. You guys are like backstabbers to me.
We're not Hey. We're not backstabbers, but imagine this is like a football game, okay, and your team is not scoring any points. Do you still get up there and say, hey, well done? No, the fans tend to
sit. The guy comes out
they tend to sit. Joe, let me make my point, okay? We don't want to bet the future of this country on a president who is trying but not succeeding. And that's where we are right now. Okay.
I think he's succeeding well. He's got the deep state.
Really? Is the wall built? Joe, is the wall built? Do we now have a wall across our southern border from the Pacific to the Rio Grande?
He doesn't have a magic
yes or no?
wand.
Yes or no? Do we have the wall?
But it's being built,
Joe,
but it's not done.
Joe, yes or no? Do we have that wall? How many miles?
We do not have the wall yet.
Joe,
but we're getting it.
Joe, how many new miles of wall have been built?
I don't know. Let's say 50.
0.
Right here. Well, no, he's repaired a lot of the wall.
Yes, he's repaired a lot of the
100
walls.
miles of wall. But once again, how's he supposed to build a wall without congressional approval? Well, the way he did, he got money from the defense budget. And he had to go to the Supreme Court to get that money. So he's in a process of getting funding to build the wall.
All right, time. So Joe, we all understand that you're going to be voting for Donald Trump next year, and
Absolutely.
That's one. Okay, but I disagree with you. I think Trump has turned out to be a very weak president. Where
weak? Any weak president would have folded, would have given up against having the FBI against them, the CIA against them, the entire apparatus of the media and the deep state. And this guy just keeps flinging it off.
No,
anybody else would have been in therapy by now.
Joe,
and have all his supporters just run away and like complain all the time.
Drop him. Joe's pushing his agenda as hard as he can, but here's the bottom line. Trump basically let his lawyers do his fighting for him. And he's not a strong leader. And he doesn't make carefully thought out decisions. He's a disappointment. And anybody who's going to vote for Donald Trump because Trump is going to try and do X, Y, Z, that's not good enough for me anymore. I don't want to bet the future of this country on a president who says, I'll try to do this. Because remember, Trump came into office promising not just the border wall, not just suggesting that Hillary would go to jail, But he was talking about vaccine safety, high prescription medication prices, our dishonest voting system, that he was going to fix all of those problems. None of them have been fixed. He's dropped the ball on every single one of them. And I'll tell you this, by the time the 2020 campaign season really starts getting intense next year, that border with us, to the south of us is still going to be wide open, and you're still going to have a ton of illegal immigrants pouring into this country, and they are all still going to be voting Democratic. So, Joe, you're obviously a fan of Trump, or you've fallen into his cult of personality. But no, he's not getting enough done to satisfy critical American voters, especially those of us who did work as hard as we did to put him into that Oval Office, because we expected a return on that investment in time and money, and we did not get it, have not gotten it. All right, we're going to take a break for commercials. The phone lines are loading up, and we're going to be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show. We're going to go back to the phones here to Tom in Philadelphia. Tom, thank you for waiting so patiently. What is on your mind?
Well, a little humor before I get to what I was going to tell you. I was listening to Joe, but maybe we could build the wall by selling advertising. Maybe you're on the Mexican side and you got a big advertiser there that says, "Tried to climb, but you fell and broke your leg. Call us. We can sue for you." Or are you disabled and can't climb? To Joe, and I feel for him, and I like Trump too. But the one thing that I don't understand is how, if they really hate him so bad, why haven't they yanked the economy out from under him?
Actually, I think the economy is in pretty bad shape right now. They just don't want to admit it.
Right. I know, but they could have jerked the stock market down and caused a big crash, and then, that would get rid of him quickly. But anyway, the reason I called was about that shooting out there.
Yes.
I heard it, but didn't a judge just rule that the ban on assault?
Okay, we're starting to lose your phone connection. You need to maybe...
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you hear me better?
Yeah, so a judge just ruled what?
That the assault rifle ban in California was legal, and now they're going to appeal it. Then there was just something over the weekend I heard about that. And I wonder if this has got something to do with that. Either the guy doesn't want the ban, or he's trying to help reinforce the ban.
Well, see, the problem is that the SKS, as I understand it, doesn't fit in with the definition of an assault rifle that we've all been fed. Again, it's a manual magazine. You have to reload by hand. It's a much longer barrel. It doesn't have the foregrip. And so...
Oh, no, I agree.
You're
I
right.
agree with that.
You're right. This could have been...
Don't understand the difference.
That's true. The anti-gunners don't understand firearms, and that's why they make so many dumb mistakes here. But you're right. This could have been done to try and head off any loosening of the gun laws, because that's exactly what happened at Columbine. Columbine happened just when that state government was getting ready to allow concealed carry with a permit.
Yeah, I can't imagine someone stopped and said, "Hey, excuse me, before you continue your shooting, could you tell me why you're shooting?" That made absolutely no sense.
I agree. I absolutely agree.
All right, Mike, that's what I had to think about. So we'll listen into the rest of the show. Have a good day. Thank you.
All right, thanks an awful lot here. I'm going to switch over to Dustin in New Jersey. Aloha, Dustin. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, hi, Mike. This is like with Joe. Joe, don't put all your eggs in one basket, because like with Trump, they're all going to be scrambled eggs. He had the opportunity to change things. Like with Russia, he didn't have, like the media didn't, they changed the discussion on him. He could have not went with them. He put Bolton in. He put Pompeo and Haspel. He put Elliott Abrams in. Dan Coates he put in, who's leaving. All these people he's put in and they're all scumbags. So Trump believes in these people's ideology. I mean, what we got going on is a faction fight between nationalism, which is imperialism, empirism, or globalism, which is the neoliberal model. But there's no wall built, and there ain't going to be no wall built. He could have built the wall by using defense budget money a long time ago if he put somebody in the Defense Department, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, like Tucker Carlson had on. Was that McGregor or the gentleman, instead of these other people? He could get rid of them anytime he wants. How come he didn't get rid of Bolton?
Yeah, I keep looking at his old TV show, The Apprentice, where it always ended every episode, "You're fired." I've been waiting to hear a repeat of that line from the White House. I'm not hearing it. Obviously, Dan Coates being a recent exception.
Well, I never watched that crap, Mike. I don't watch TV because that was all showbiz. You know, it's a fraud. He could have got rid of these people anytime he wants, and he didn't. He chose not to. So all these people who are fighting him in the deep state, there's different factions going on. I mean, there's just not one faction in our country. There's a lot of, like, business dealings. There's a lot of shenanigans going on.
Yes,
but he had the opportunity. Yeah, but he had the opportunity to change things, and he hasn't. Look at the head of the Defense Department. Isn't the guy like a former Raytheon CEO or something? I mean, come on, man. I mean, come on now. You can't keep giving this dude all this credit when there's nothing been done. There's zero wall built. He repaired old wall. That's a fact. You know, like I said, he could have started the wall a year ago if he put somebody in the Defense Department. He could have sent troops there a long time ago. And remember, Mike, Mexico was going to pay for the wall, the billions, like China, the billions of dollars we're bringing in. Where's that money? Whose pocket is that going? Where's that going to? All that money that they're raking in supposedly from the tariffs or the sanctions. How come they find money to give Guaido in Venezuela?
Yeah.
How come Trump's doing that? Or Iran with the MEK and all this other. Sorry, Trump's a lost cause, and you people want to still support him. You're putting your eggs all in a broken basket, basically. I mean, it's over. You know, like nothing's repaired. Where's the infrastructure? He just keeps twittering the other day. Where's the infrastructure twitters? I don't know, man. I just don't get it. I don't understand why people can't figure this crap out, Mike. Like, I get angry.
Well, they get caught up in the cult of personality, which is where Joe in Tennessee is. He supported Trump, obviously, in 2016, and he doesn't want to give up the fact that he made the right choice in doing so. Some of us more mature people are willing to say, hey, I messed up. Supporting Trump wasn't the best of all possible worlds, but then what was our other choice? Hillary Clinton. If Hillary Clinton comes in next year, yes, I will reluctantly support Donald Trump again. But if Hillary stays out of it, I don't plan on getting deeply involved in the elections next year. I'm getting too old for this stuff, and I need a rest. And I'll observe, and I'll analyze, and I'll report, but I'm not going to get invested in any candidates. So that's kind of my attitude at this point. By the way, we've had a couple of emails come on this very topic. One of them is saying, if anyone is a backstabber, it's Trump. If you look at his treatment of Julian Assange and his treatment of Alex Jones, his determination to ignore the independent media, who are the people who actually put him into power. And yes, that's very annoying, especially when you look at the Senate bill that is going through about the memes. And we'll see that if there may be a veto battle over that. But Trump has not stood up for the independent media. And I don't understand why he is not doing anything about this very obvious liberal censorship going on by Twitter and Facebook and Google and the other social media companies, because by the time next year comes around, there will be no conservative voices out there, and it's going to cost him deeply.
But how do you stand up when you got like a faction, which is the Bolton faction, unless Trump believes the Bolton faction, fighting the neoliberal faction? You know what I mean? Like, there's plenty of people out there. I thought Trump was going to put people in that's not in like the Washington insiders.
That was certainly the assumption. When he said drain the swamp, the idea was that, yeah, they were literally going to basically get rid of the old rot and, get some fresh blood in there. Because there are plenty of people from outside the Beltway with the necessary skills to do the job of running this country. The way the Founding Fathers set this country up was so that ordinary people could run the government. We were not supposed. That's one of the radical things about the United States at its creation. It got rid of the central bank. It got rid of the need of royalty. It got rid of the need for nobility. In fact, in the original 13th Amendment, titles of nobility were absolutely outlawed. This was a country that was set up for ordinary people and for ordinary people to run it. And again, look at the Founding Fathers themselves. Paul Revere's a silversmith. Ben Franklin, an inventor and a publisher. Yes, Thomas Jefferson was a lawyer. You've got to have a few of those around there. But these were ordinary people. And service in the government was part-time, was an honorarium. And the rest of the time, you had your homes and businesses that you ran. And that was the way it was supposed to be. We weren't supposed to have this permanent, exalted ruling class that takes our money and just spends it on things we don't approve of. So, got another email here. Mike, I've never agreed with you more than I do about Trump being a major disappointment. Joe from Tennessee is hooked on Trump's cult of personality, like many Trump supporters. Thanks for standing up to Joe. Yeah, I mean, maybe it's because I'm an old guy.
Mike, it's who he puts around him, Mike.
Yeah.
It's who he puts around him represents him.
Yes.
If he puts crap around him, then he's crap. That's how it works in the real world.
Yes.
Joe from Tennessee calls in with some great stuff. But, Joe, you're wrong. I'm telling you, dude, this guy's a lost cause because he had ample opportunity to fix things by putting people in. To protect himself, he should have put people in to protect him, not Bolton and Pompeo. They're not protecting them. They're protecting their own interests, and they got this ideology. Hey, Mike, real quick before I get off the phone, I talked about Aston Martin, 20% guidance loss. They're talking. Did you hear about in California, well, the whole country, there's been a decline in Chinese or Asian buying homes, like 30 to 50% of buying, like, homes. Because they're the ones that pay cash for the homes. They don't get mortgages.
Yeah.
So there is, so we're entering like a bad time, like economically, and because those numbers are all rigged, like we've been saying before, it's all the federal. Yeah, and again, the Federal Reserve, he hasn't done anything with the Federal Reserve. He made a deal with the budget with the Democrats. I mean, come on, man. Like, you're just increasing the debt of the country. That's it. You're not fixing. He didn't fix anything. You're increasing the debt of the country. That's not fixing anything. That's all I got to say, Mike. Have a good show.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go there and switch over to Joe in California. Aloha, Joe. Thank you for waiting. What's on your mind?
Hello, Mike. I hope you'll hold me over if we get interrupted by a break. Mike, first of all, I guess I missed Joe from Tennessee's call. I don't want to pile on him, but when I hear Joe of Tennessee, when I hear one of his calls, I think of three words: slavish, fawning, bootlicker. That's all I need to say. Mike, Dustin and the other callers who are disappointed with Trump, yeah, I'm disappointed slightly, but they have to realize, and I thought they would have known this before, Trump isn't the real power in this country. There are people, call me a conspiracy theorist. I believe there are people in the background making these big decisions. Trump can do a few things,
I agree with you. I agree with you, but there have been presidents who have been able to basically push back against, and as I said before, John Kennedy and Harry Truman are two that come to mind. And Trump's just not capable. He's going with the flow. He's rolling with the tide, if you will.
Right.
And I expected more of him based on.
But there's never going to be a wall. There's never going to be a wall because that gets in the way of the globalist agenda. It's never going to happen.
Yep.
I know it's never going to happen. So forget about the wall. It's not going to happen. You're not going to see an end to these wars because this will get in the way of the oligarchy, the globalist agenda. Trump is only serving one part of his base, and that's it. And I don't even call them Christians. I call them cultists, Schofield Zionists. That's the only part of his base that he's concerned about. And he's looking to them to get him reelected. And I don't think they're going to make up enough to push him over the top this time. Because he had other people. He had the blue collar Democrats who got him over.
Hello, did we lose Joe? Okay, it sounds like we lost Joe. Trump has turned his back on so many of the different bases that supported him in 2016. He's not going to get them back next year. And I think he's a one-term president, and maybe he wants to campaign in 2020 because he loves campaigning. He really enjoys that. He likes nothing better than getting on out there and doing a public speech and receiving all that public adulation. He's just short on actually doing the real job. So maybe his goal is to have a real fun time next year campaigning and graciously concede to whoever comes on in to take the White House from him. All right, so we're going to switch over to Tom in Indiana. Aloha, Tom. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. I want to agree with Joe a little bit. I remember reading about George Washington crossing the Delaware, and I don't recall his troops around him saying, "Oh, I don't think this guy knows what he's doing. I don't think this is a very good idea to cross the river in the wintertime. I don't support this guy. I don't know why we're supporting this guy. Why should we go in this boat? And I want to remind you, the president is not a dictator. He has to overturn some of this deep state politicians that's been in there forever. Like my ex-congressman who used to be at an insurance agency down on Rudisol until he got in with Dan Quayle to be one of his aides, and then he got on the public tit, and once he got on the public tit, you can see now where he is. And I never would have voted for that guy because his ears are lying upside down. You look at the pictures, he's a scary looking person. And he was the head of the intelligence that Trump is trying to get rid of.
All right, well, listen, Tom.
Am I the only one that thinks Dustin whines all the time? I mean, every time that he calls
Tom, thank you very much. We got to take a break for commercials. We'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're coming up on the top of the hour. The phone lines are open. 800-313-9443. And before you start calling on in here, I want to basically emphasize that this is a civil, respectful discussion forum. We don't get personal. We don't hurl insults. Okay. And we stick with facts, not beliefs. And most subjects we're open to. Some obviously kooky subjects are banned. But it is my radio show. I am the boss. So it shall be as I said. All right, getting on back to our domestic political situation. Apparently Donald Trump made some comments about conditions in Baltimore that were immediately denounced as racist comments. Trump was talking about how rat-infested Baltimore County is. And it is. They've got a major rat problem there. Same with Los Angeles. And nothing's being done about it. Why? Well, we need to spend the money dropping bombs on other people's countries. So Bernie Sanders came out swinging against Donald Trump for his racist comments about Baltimore, forgetting that 4 years ago, he himself compared the city to a third world country. Well, stop yakking about it, figure out a solution, and do something about it. Bernie Sanders came on out and said, residents of Baltimore's poorest boroughs have lifespans shorter than people living under dictatorship in North Korea. Well, heck, if dictatorship means a longer life, I say we get one of those. Maybe two. Come on, Bernie. Speaking of failing badly, has anybody taken a look at what's going on in Nancy Pelosi's district in San Francisco, which is overrun with homelessness, illegal immigrants? There's poo in the street, disposed of drug needles. And Trump is out there saying the conditions in these Democratic stronghold places are deteriorating, and anytime you want to say something about it, the first thing they say is, oh, you're just being racist. We have human poo in the street here. Shouldn't we do something? Oh, you're just being racist. Well, look at all the drug needles. Yeah, you're just being racist. Don't you think you should clean this place? Oh, this place is just fine. You're just being racist. Anyway, here's a little lesson for those of you who are in relationships. Always be careful what you share with the other person. Apparently last week, Democratic Representative Ilhan Omar left her husband and moved into a luxury downtown penthouse. Oh, we're going to take a break for station identification, and I'll finish out the story on the other side. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show, hour number 2. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443, and we have callers on the line. So let's start with Al in Canada. Aloha, Al. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. I've called in and defended Donald Trump after you've given him a shellacking. So, you know, politicians are politicians. The one up here in Canada, our prime minister, is, you know, he's whatever he is, but he's useless is what he is, except if you're an illegal immigrant or something like that, right?
Yes.
I sent you an email about the money laundering in British Columbia.
Yes, I just saw that.
That has to do with the Chinese, because Dustin in New Jersey had mentioned about money drying up in the United States to buy houses. You don't want that money. It just drives up the price of the house, and ordinary people just cannot seem to afford to buy one. So it's a double-edged sword, you know, Mike?
Yes. Yeah, it is. And, you know,
yeah.
It's like real estate has become this giant sponge that just sucks up more and more money. Millennials are not able to buy homes the way their parents could. The standard of living of the millennial generation is in fact notably lower than previous generations. We are a nation in decline.
Well, if you're in decline, Canada's in decline, because the same thing's happening up here. It's all the machinations of the bankers. I don't know who, obviously the politicians are all involved in this too, because they're either stupid, and I do mean plain out and out stupid, or, they're getting kickbacks.
Yeah.
Canada never had a crash in the real estate market like the United States did, Mike. It just kept going straight up after our banks were bailed out. So, I mean, it's beyond pathetic now. And the average house of right around where I'm living is about $350,000, Mike.
Yeah.
Like, when you were younger, and you were thinking about buying a house, and I mean before all this real estate nonsense started getting out of control, I mean, you were looking at a house about 3 times your wage. Your yearly wage.
Yes.
And that's about right about where it was. Now, I mean, $350,000. How much do you have to make a year to be able to afford that? Seriously. Low interest rates are great, but hey, they might not last forever.
No, they might not.
Per percentage.
You know, and as your wages and salaries get driven down, the struggle just becomes that much harder. I remember when my family, and admittedly this was a while ago, when my family moved to West Covina, California, we moved into this wonderful 4-bedroom house with a swimming pool with an attached garage. Now you can't get a high-end car for $50,000.
Yeah. It just goes to show you how out of control it has become. And this over-financialization of everything is literally, it's just sucking the life out of the whole planet.
That's exactly it. And
we're not winning.
You know, when I was over on Kauai, one of the things I noticed is how far it's already gone into this cashless idea, that everything had to be a credit or debit card. And that means that everything that you're doing, the bank is automatically getting a piece of that action. They're making money off of your commerce with other people.
Yep. Same with credit card companies. I remember years and years ago, if you went to use a credit card at some places, they would charge you 2% more because they were going to get nicked for that.
Yes.
Now it's just built into the price.
Yep.
It's the cost of doing business. I mean, we have come so far down this path that, and you've warned about this years and years ago, that there may not be a way back other than a total and utter collapse, just like the Soviet Union, or worse, or even worse. So, Dustin, Chinese cash buying up the houses in the United States is not a good idea because a lot of it's cash. They're laundering money.
Yeah,
they got to be. So, not to mention that drives the price of houses up, and you don't want that. You already had a real estate crash, almost 10 years ago, and there's nothing wrong with being able to afford a house and not using your house as a piggy bank, which is being done. It's sad. Anyways, I appreciate your time, Mike. You have a good show.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to Mike in Kentucky. Aloha, Mike. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Oh, I had the lucky occasion to help a friend take a trip to Baltimore recently, and it just so happens I found out after I got back home that we were there when they were under cyber attack, and so none of the offices could accept email, or all the email and other aspects of their computers were down. I think that had to exacerbate the traffic problems, but we sat down in a lawyer's office and looked over my shoulder, and his son's pictures on the wall. He's a prosecutor or not a prosecutor. He's a detective for the homicide division. His wife is a prosecutor for the homicide division, and he pulls out a gun before we left the office. It shows us this little pistol that shoots shotgun shells, which are untraceable, called the Judge.
Yes.
And the principal that we were trying to find out about this corporation, a shell corporation. We found out it was a shell corporation, and the guy that was the principal for it was gunned down in broad daylight in a barber shop. Boston Globe has a video up about it, and this has been about, a year or so back. But, they called it a targeted killing. And the traffic jam was so bad, the lawyer said, y'all don't go out through the north of town. That's where the Canadians live. Well, that was the best way out. So I said, let's go. We'll see what he's talking about. And, man, it's just wall-to-wall slums, and, some of them are falling down piles of bricks. And, it's the north side of Maryland, of that town is just horrible. You get outside of town, of course, and it's, you can't find anything to shop. It's all rural trees, and the shopping centers are all hidden, at least the part we were in. We had a heck of a time finding our way back to the expressway, but it was a trip, I tell you, when America hides its poverty a lot of times, and they avoid, that side of town is avoided. But yeah, there's, Trump's right about that. Baltimore's got its plenty of problems. A lot of New England towns do. and it's just population density. There's no denying it. If you've traveled, you've seen it.
Well, it's not just the population density, it's that the infrastructure is not being enlarged and improved to deal with the population growth. We're seeing that all over the country where there are way too many people. Cities were designed and built for a population of so many. Now they're swelling way beyond that, and there's no money to say, hey, let's expand this, let's add another lane to the freeway, let's do this, let's do that. And it's all caught up in politics and corruption. And there are a lot of people here on this island who are openly saying they don't think this light rail system is ever going to actually be running. We're talking about, billions of dollars for a light rail train that runs 20 miles across the south of the island. And it's an eyesore right now. But we're in the realm of fighting over audits and lawsuits and everything. But it's, I think a lot of people in politics are sensing that things are coming to a head. And if anything, it has made them more aggressive in the pillaging of their offices for their own personal gain.
You go 10 miles or so on north out of this section I'm talking about, the rat-infested, Baltimore, Maryland, and you get out into kind of business zones with groomed lawns and koi ponds with $400,000 worth of koi fish in them. So it's a real contrast. You just have to go a few miles.
Yes.
Well, anyway, it's not getting any better, I don't think, the way that, they're but it's a vengeance against any kind of middle class or, I think people need to get more creative with the cardboard signs. One of the ideas I came up with is we'll work for anything government can't take. Huh?
Ooh, I love that one. I love that one.
I've got a bunch of them. I'll let you go.
All right, thanks an awful lot. I think what we're going to be seeing in the future, and again, we saw this in the former Soviet Union, we saw it in ancient Rome, is that the little enclaves of the wealthy get richer and richer, but smaller and smaller. And meanwhile, the rest of the population is basically allowed to fend for themselves. They only exist to create wealth for the Roman Empire or create votes for the incumbents. And other than that, they're of no use to us. Therefore, we're not going to do anything about it. Okay, we're going to do a shout out to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining the network here. And let's take a phone call from Terry in California. Aloha, Terry. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Mike, Dustin was talking about why doesn't the president get rid of both? Well, to me, the answer is obvious, and this is my opinion. It's not fact. That's going to skirt the rule you just made, but he wants that money from Sheldon Adelson. And if he gets rid of him now, that money's not going to be there for 2020. So it's a matter of, being selfish like all the politicians are, thinking about themselves first above the country, and that's what's going to kill us. What's your take?
That's an aspect of all government is to keep the money flowing and never let your budget get cut. And that could be a big part of what's going on here. But I think the other aspect, as I said before, is that more and more insiders understand it's about to come apart somewhere down the road. And so they've decided they're going to be more daring in plundering their office. It's like when the country is losing the war, the king grabs the crown jewels and heads for the border.
Right. Okay, Mike, that's the only point I want to make. Appreciate it. Talk to you next time.
All right, thanks an awful lot. Here, we're going to switch over to Bruce in Chicago. Aloha, Bruce. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Oh, Mike, nice to talk to you. What's on my mind is the wall.
Yes.
I walked in Saturday night on Janine Pirro's show, and there was somebody, I didn't catch the fellow's name, on the show, representative, I guess, from the Trump administration, saying that they were building 1 mile of wall per week. Was he out there just lying, bald-faced lying? He didn't say new wall. I'm pretty sure he said 1 mile of wall per week was being built.
Well, they're replacing sections of the existing wall that have fallen into disrepair. But the point is that the unwalled areas of our border remain unwalled, and that's where the crossings are happening.
Well, yes, I understand that, but I just can't believe that the guy could stand up there or sit there and say that. And I don't know, I'm not real good on the computer, but I ran across a piece of film there, or footage there on the computer, and I don't know if this was phony, but it showed heavy equipment and time-lapse building sections of new wall in a pretty hilly area there just recently. And I don't know what the details were on that, but I mean, you think this was fake video that I was watching here? It looked like real, pretty good-sized machines doing a heck of a job putting up new wall, not fixing wall. So, I mean, either there's a lot of phony stuff out there. I mean, you're the news guy. I would hope that you would be accurate in saying there's 0 new wall been built. None? I can't believe that none would be built, and you could actually say none?
No new wall has been built. Old wall has been knocked down and is being replaced. And I think that's the video that you saw, because if it's the same one I saw, it's over by San Diego.
It was pretty hilly territory, and they were putting up big sections there with these special arms and stuff holding it up and holding the concrete up and for a period of time. And then when it cured, they were backing off of it, and there it was. But they didn't show any tearing down of the wall.
Well, call me picky, but until there is a single contiguous unbroken wall reaching from the Pacific Ocean to the Rio Grande, I am not impressed by all the posing and PR videos that are being put on out. If the problem isn't being fixed, the problem isn't being fixed. And I don't see the problem being fixed. And I don't understand why Trump isn't pushing on this, because the illegal immigrants voted by the millions in 2016 and almost put Hillary over the top. And they're counting on being able to do that in 2020. In fact, there are liberal Democrats out there openly saying the reason we're bringing in these illegal immigrants is we know they'll vote Democratic. And by the way, friendly little reminder, illegal immigrants aren't supposed to vote. But then our friends over in the liberal Democrats went on out there with the lawyers and knocked down all the laws requiring voter ID. And, saying that, voter ID was racist here. Well, when you show your ID to buy a bottle of wine, nobody's screaming racism. When you show your ID, if you get pulled over by a police officer, nobody says that's a racist incident. I mean, we have our IDs for a wide variety of reasons. And only in this area of confirming citizenship and eligibility to vote is it all of a sudden a major problem for the Democrats.
I agree, Mike. They're getting worse every day. I see it. I see it getting worse every day, and I don't know what the solution is. But just one thing before I let you go real quick, change a little bit. I know you like Tulsi Gabbard, and I would think that somebody that was thinking that if Tulsi's a gun grabber, from what I understand, she kind of wants to, undo our Second Amendment. And how could you even, where would we be without the Second Amendment? I mean, wouldn't that one thing, just that one thing in itself, rule her out? I mean, that's a pretty important one. First and Second Amendment, those are the ones. I mean, they're all important, but I mean, where would you be with somebody like that? And if everything was good in this country and they took the guns away, in the next administration, then what?
Well, as my ardor for Ms. Gabbard is definitely on the wane, and not just because of her Second Amendment points of view, but some of her more recent statements on the issues of immigration. I'm starting to lose my enthusiasm. Plus, of course, in another month, we're going to be in different states again. So it's like,
Well,
Aloha,
I mean,
Tulsi. Nice knowing you. Thank you for the coconuts.
Right. Well, yeah, I hear you there, but I just didn't understand where you were coming from there, because that would just, to me, rule her. I don't know who's out there. I don't see anybody out there. I'm hoping
I don't either. Trump may win a second term purely by default. They're trying to polish Biden up, but he keeps stumbling and bumbling around those debate stages, and he's doing a lot of damage to himself. So
but
they
the
don't.
lips are kind of big, as far as I'm concerned.
The Democrats don't really have a good, viable candidate at this point, which is why I'm scared they're going to draft Hillary.
Well, I sure hope that doesn't come about. Or Michelle. That would be unbelievable.
Michelle,
okay, thank you.
Michelle is not a viable candidate. She has no prior political experience. At least when Bill Clinton came into the White House, Hillary, in her own right, was a capable person. Michelle Obama, no. They're not going to be able to sell that one. Anyway, listen, we're coming up here on a commercial break. I'm going to have to let you go, and we'll be right back with more phone calls. From the description of the video, it sounds like that he was actually seeing the crowd-funded wall built by the Rio Grande River at El Paso, Texas. But that was not government funding. That was not the government building the wall. That was the people building the wall. That doesn't count. I mean, yeah, a lot of people in the government are probably going to try and take credit for that and say, well, see, a new wall is being built. Yeah, but not by you guys. And that's your legitimate job. The legitimate purpose of government is to collectively do for the community what the community needs but cannot organize for themselves. And that's it. Okay? Anything more than that, like arguing about which restroom to use, is an abuse of power and authority. All right, we're going to go back to the phones here now to Ed in Las Vegas. Aloha. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. There's a lot of people trying to stick up for Trump, I guess, and they're still under the belief that, if he could just get those Democrats to agree with him. I mean, he could do it all, but the Democrats are in the way, which is complete. I mean, for some things it's true, but most of it is complete BS. No one... Yeah,
I mean, he had a totally GOP Congress, until the midterms. Why didn't he move then?
Oh, yeah. I guess they don't even have a reason for that. And I actually have Trump. I don't know. Can I play an Axios, like a couple seconds of an Axios clip on your show, or is that...
Yeah.
Of Trump talking? Okay. So here's Trump lying to all you Trump supporters about birthright citizenship. And I'd love to hear all your excuses as to why Trump can't sign a piece of paper and sign an executive order.
Definitely do it with an act of Congress. But now they're saying I can do it just with an executive order. Now, how ridiculous. We're the only country in the world where a person comes in, has a baby, and the baby is essentially a citizen of the United States for 85 years with all of those benefits. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. But it has to end.
Have you talked about that with council?
Yeah.
So where in the process?
It's in the process. It'll happen.
It's in the process. It'll happen. I'm monitoring the situation. Well, he said this on October 30th, 2018. Has he done it? I mean, why not do it now? People are coming in all the time.
That's my complaint about Trump right there. It's always like, well, it's even like Joe in Tennessee. Be patient. It's going to happen. He's working on it. He's trying. That's not good enough. We're getting excuses for Donald Trump that sound like he's a school child. That he's a kid in maybe 4th or 5th grade who's just struggling with his math studies. He's not. He's the president of the United States of America. He's supposed to represent the best that we've got. He's supposed to be a leader, not a tweeter. And we're not getting that.
Well, he literally has to write his signature on a piece of paper. That's all he has to do. It probably burns like 10 calories. That's all Trump has to do, and he won't do it. He's purposely not doing it. And if you look at the people he brings to the social media summit and all this stuff, it's all okay. TPUSA, nobody likes TPUSA. They're a joke. They're completely for Israel. They don't care about, they're actually mocking Trump's wall. The people from, I forget what her name was, one of the USA people on Twitter. But they're complete shills. And so Trump is either totally naive, a complete idiot, because he keeps hiring all these people that hate him or that are previous never Trumpers or something, or he's being, they're extorting him or something. And, everyone who wants to do something with Trump, they got to go through this guy, Jared Kushner, I don't know anyone who voted for the guy. He has no public accountability or anything. Why is he even in that White House? And, all these people, what is it, the MAGA Reddit tier people, they can't see it. And they always make excuses. They're going to make an excuse for this. Somehow they're going to make an excuse. And all they're waiting for is for all those boomers or whoever it is, no offense to any of the woke the boomers that know what's going on, but there's a lot of people there, they don't read the news all day, and they're just like, oh, Trump's on my team. Well, you know what? They're just waiting for you to die because the immigration is what they're doing is you're going to be replaced. And the demographics is destiny. So if you look at, how people vote, before they have generations and generations to assimilate, they vote based on race. Voting is nothing more than a racial head count, and anyone can go look up any state they want and see how the vote, demographics, and do a search on how they voted. It's always the same thing. And, Marco Rubio telling you that, hey, as soon as you guys get across the border, they're going to be voting Republican, or like, as soon as we let all these people out of jail, they're going to vote for Trump. They're not. You can look it up. It's never going to happen. They're just waiting to replace you, and so you won't have any gun rights because your vote won't count. They're going to replace your vote. So, and they're doing it with the demographics. And who are the people doing it? Well, you've touched on it a couple of times, but they're the same people that are forcing Trump to do whatever he's doing or whatever. But it's you got to stop those people.
Yeah, it's a mess here. I think a Soviet-style collapse is the only thing that's going to save this country. We got to take a break for commercials. Thank you for the phone call, Ed. We'll be right back. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're going to go right back to the phones to Mark in North Carolina. Aloha, Mark. Thank you for being so patient. What's on your mind?
How you doing, Mike? Mike, you were talking about house prices before. What's going on? Well, first of all, these things are being inflated by artificial means. One is way too low interest rates, and if you notice, looks like the Fed, instead of raising interest rates, is going to lower it again.
Yes.
And that's going to jack up the prices of homes even more. And then again, it's a matter of a region, too. I think where you're going to move, you probably do pretty well. I know Amarillo, where I used to live, I talked to people who live there, and home prices have barely gone up at all because it's not one of these desirable places. I think Amarillo is a beautiful town, but it's not considered, for the, how should I say it, the elite, one of the places they want to move to. And the same thing actually where you go in Indiana and most of North Carolina here. Another way they keep home prices artificially high, zoning. Like,
yes.
You want to, for instance, own a manufactured home. North Carolina is pretty good at it. I own a manufactured home on its own land here in North Carolina at reasonably priced. But a lot of places here, they have the zoning laws that you can't even put any kind of house you want. It can't be manufactured, and it has to be of a certain size on top of it. So you can buy the land, not do it, but then put a home on that land would cost you a fortune because the house would have to be much bigger than you even need. So this is another way to keep the homes artificially priced. And a lot of it favors the rich and keep home prices artificially high. And then, of course, you got these so-called investors who buy up a whole lot of properties and stuff. And if you notice, to bring it into the so-called housing crash that you had a few years ago, a lot of hedge fund types started buying homes and renting them out because they couldn't sell them any other ways. So this is all part of their plan. This is what they're doing. Now, I don't think it's going to work. I think sooner or later, very soon, you're going to have a housing crash again. maybe even going to be worse than the last one. It'll probably actually wind up helping a lot of people. But for now, this is how they're doing it, and they think they can keep on getting away with it, including continue lowering these artificial interest rates, and we're going to pay for that too. And
well, it's going to stop working. I mean, look at how they've lowered the prices and interest rates on auto loans, and they still can't sell them. We, the American people, we've had all of our money has been sucked out of us. It's all gone, and yet the government and corporate interests are continuing to operate in this very apparently delusional belief that there's still plenty of wealth out there in the American people if we can just figure a way to suck it out of them.
Yeah. Another thing too, Mike, is what they're doing also when we talk about the illegal aliens. They're selling homes or renting homes to illegals where you got, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 families willing to move into the same house, and each one contributes a certain amount of money so they can pay the artificially high mortgages and artificially high rent. So that's another way they do things. They got so many scams. On top of that, they've getting foreigners to buy property in the United States, including from China. But I think that's going to stop too. I think that's already stopping because people are starting to see that this isn't going to last very much longer. You know?
Yeah.
So, but basically, they're doing it with artificially low interest rates, ridiculous and unfair zoning regulations, and you know that's and like I said, illegal aliens coming into this country and selling the illegals homes or renting them, where you got 4 or 5 families moving into one house. It's a scam, Mike, and I think they're about.
It's more than a scam. It's more than a scam. It's an act of desperation. The government is desperate to somehow magically restart an economy that is on the verge of death. And they're looking for a magic solution, a magic wand, get somebody over here from Hogwarts School of Economics and swing that wand and bring the economy back to life. And it's not really going to happen. And we're going to start seeing more and more financial institutions start to fail, just like we're seeing these iconic retail institutions starting to fail, because there simply isn't enough money out there to cover, first of all, the high cost of the facilities, the high interest rates, the lines of credit. Do you realize that most retail institutions don't follow the old model of buying inventory and then reselling it? The inventory on the shelf is all there on the basis of loaned money from the banks. So more and more the banks are sucking the wealth out of the country. And, you know, it's like this giant vampire. But even a vampire knows that when the body you're sucking on is dead, you stop sucking.
Right. And, you know, Mike, the people I kind of really feel sorry for, though, is again, people who got screwed the last time. And you get these people who overpay for these homes, thinking, well, it'll accumulate in value and we can somehow make up for it and all that. And then you're going to have this crash, and they're going to be stuck paying like hundreds of thousands of dollars for a house that maybe they could get 50 or 60 for, if that. And it's a shame. And it's all one big con game. And the establishment gets away with it. Financial establishment, the same people that get us into the wars,
yep,
and get us into all this other type of stuff. And I think the time has come, Mike. I'll be honest with you. I think there needs to be some kind of a revolution, not necessarily a violent revolution, but some kind of a revolution where people say, you know, the heck with it. We're not going to buy anything from you. We're not going to do anything for you. We're not going to pay taxes. We're not going to do, you know, we're not going to. We're not going to buy your products. We're not going to buy your cars. We're not going to hook into your computers. We're not going to do anything. Okay, and something like that. That would be better than a violent revolution, of course. But I don't know where we're going, Mike.
Well, it certainly worked for Gandhi. I mean, Gandhi declared general strikes all across India, and it brought the British business machine to a standstill. So. But the problem is,
You know who could do that? You know who could do that, Mike? Is truckers. Truckers could stop everything, and they probably should, because they're trying to push this driverless, bad enough driverless cars. They want to push driverless trucks.
yeah,
Take truckers' livelihood away, and on top of that, make more dangerous situations than we have already. And I think now would be the time, maybe, for a truck strike, for the truckers to just say, you know what, we're not going to move. We're not going to move these trucks. We'll keep them on the interstate and tie up everything, one or the other. That would be the best form of revolution. And the truckers are the ones that can do it, really, more than anybody else at this point. You know?
yeah.
Because they control basically interstate commerce, and they're getting ready, to really hurt these truckers with these so-called driverless trucks. And so that would be a good way of doing it, really. Certainly be better than taking guns and starting to shoot each other, you know?
Well, I'm definitely opposed to that last approach here, but
Right, I am too.
yeah, I think at some point, if the American people, if they could be united in their concerns, that yeah,
With the establishment.
we could have a general strike the way Gandhi did, and it would basically. I'm sorry, what?
Well, I'm saying what the establishment would do if the truckers did something like that, they would then try to turn the people against the truckers and say, this is what you get. They blame the unions, they blame this, they blame that, and they try to point blame. So people have to be ready for something like this and support whatever kind of strike we have, because believe me, big bankers, the big oil companies, the elite, the rich elite, they have no use for the regular people. They have none at all. They hate you. They hate us. They wish if they had their way, it's going to be, and they're trying to do that. It would be like we call it the Georgia Guidestone.
Yes.
They want a lot of us dead if they had their way, and you know, I don't trust what they might do as far as biological weapons or anything else like that. On top of everything else, they got no respect for us. They hate us. They think we're like vermin. I think they're vermin personally, though, Mike.
Yes.
That's the thing. We got to be prepared to back each other up. It really comes down to it, and understand who the enemy is. The enemy is not in Russia, not in China, not anywhere. It's right here in this country.
Yes.
The enemy is within. That's the most dangerous enemy, and we better wake up and understand that. And that's all I got to say, Mike. Really.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to switch over to Peter in Los Angeles. Aloha, Peter. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Yeah, hi, Mike. I couldn't agree more with what Mark just said, and it's almost irredeemable. It's not almost. It is. It will never change. Will have to be imposed from the outside, be it strikes or force or whatever. And they will never give up their fat cat positions. And by the way, I wanted to call about presidential power and make the point that the owners of this country, and we're talking about the two-party system here, and the 5 top donors, just the top donors to the Democratic Party, are all Israel firster, big-time Zionists. The 5 top donors to the Republican Party are also Israel firster Zionists. We're talking about the wars and the banks. That's who they are. They're the people keeping us in the wars. They're the people, gaming the banks against us. They're the people who will never be out of money because they can just always attach another computerized zero out of nothing and make money out of nothing. And it doesn't go to us. It goes to them.
Yes.
They engineer it so it goes to them. But the point is, they have invested so much power, these owners, in the presidents of the past. They did it just under Obama. They really doubled down. Obama was such an obedient lapdog to these guys that they said, well, okay, we're going to codify that you can have indefinite detention without trial. The president can just draw a line through your name. You can go to jail for the rest of your life. They can Guantanamo your butt and torture you on the way, by the way,
yep.
and disappear. You never even get a dime to call the lawyer. They also doubled down and said, what, the president can murder you anywhere in the world, American citizen, without having to answer to anybody. So he's got all this power. Now, they never figured that anybody would actually move against them, but the president has that authority. The president, as commander-in-chief, could say, look, I'm pulling out of Syria. I'm pulling out of some of the bases around the world. I'm calling them back. I'm going to redeploy our troops to the border, and we have every right to shoot to kill, do whatever we need to do to stop this influx, and we're going to use the Corps of Engineers, the CBs, and everybody else, and we're going to build this wall. We could take these guys that we should be jailing or picking up in these ICE raids and say, look, we're going to put you on a chain gang. You're going to build this goddamn wall yourself. And then when you're done, we're going to boot your ass over the border. He could do all that. By the way, that's all in something called the, the National Defense Resource Authorization Act of 2012.
Yeah.
It used to be at whitehouse.gov. All that stuff can be done with a stroke of a pen. And Congress doesn't have anything to say about it. So at any rate, that's why you're right. He's not a choir boy. This is not a choir boy position. You don't get points for wanting to do good and saying you want to do good. You either do it or you don't, and you're out. And we're at the point where we cannot wait anymore. We have to have results, and we have to have results immediately. And so all this power invested by the owners, the billionaire Zionists that own this government, can be used against them. We can jujitsu these guys. And that's the only way it's going to be done, other than what Mark says, which probably will need to be done anyways. But you're not going to get you're probably not going to get this from Trump, because he was getting Zionist awards back in the early 80s. Roy Cohn was his mentor.
Yes.
All these guys, Epstein, Cohn, they're his boys. They're his boys. He's one of them. His son-in-law, his daughter, he's completely sold out. Utterly, completely. He may as well be Bibi Netanyahu's retarded younger brother. So, but the source of all this, Mike, of everything, are these banks that can make money out of nothing. It doesn't go to us; it goes to them. And there again, they can't be audited. So what do? Well, you know what? You send an infantry battalion. You surround the New York Fed, the Dallas Fed, Chicago Fed with infantry battalions, and you absolutely shut them down. And then you do an honest forensic audit, and then jail these guys, put them on trial for all the crimes they've done. That's all it would take. But that's the source of all the power that's being used against us. All these Israel firsters, all these guys, it all depends on the banks.
Yep.
All the wars depend on the banks, everything. So there it is. That's my little comment. What do you think, Mike?
It's a good rant. What can I tell you? It's a very good rant.
It's not, and as Mark says, and you said, really, it's not going to go anywhere. My rant, what has to be done is we're going to have to just completely civil disobey. Don't pay our taxes. Just when they want our support, just flip them the bird and tell them to F off and go about our business. And massive civil disobedience. But you're also right, Mike, in that it takes a unified response here, and they've so effectively divided us up.
Yes.
The illegal aliens, the blacks, the this, the that. We have been so...
The L, the G, the B, the T, the Q.
Exactly. Nobody can see the forest for the trees. So,
all right, well, listen, Peter, we're coming up on a commercial break here. We're going to let you go. We've got another caller waiting on the line who's been sitting there very patiently. We're going to come back to you after these few words. And aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And the phone lines now are completely open. The caller we had waiting apparently got bored or something. And dropped it. So getting on back to Ilhan Omar, she has apparently left her husband and moved into a luxury downtown penthouse, maybe purely for appearances. But as you know, rumors continue to swirl that Omar married her brother in a case of immigration fraud. And so right now, the last thing Omar wants is more scrutiny on her personal life. Well, baby, we all want. And as it turns out, a mugshot from a previous arrest was released, and it turns out that Ilhan Omar has quite a spectacular, almost, record. She's got a huge rap sheet that's going to be chasing her around for the next election here. Now, speaking of Tulsi Gabbard, she has sued Google over censorship claims. She's suing for $50 million. And Gabbard is alleging Google suspended their advertising account for several hours last month. Now, a Google spokesperson came on back, attributing the brief suspension to sudden large spending changes that set off Google's automated systems. And Google explained that they have automated systems that flag unusual activity on all advertiser accounts, including large spending changes, in order to prevent fraud and protect our customers. Blah, blah, blah. Well, Gabbard is saying that's not what's going on in this case, and Google's new approach to fend off the lawsuit is to say this is an attack by Gabbard on Google's right to freedom of speech. And Google has a very Israeli approach to freedom of speech. Okay for us, not so good for you. You know, we get a nation state, you don't. There's a little bit of an embarrassment here. Apparently there was this artist, if you will, who created a spoof presidential seal. And in one talon of the eagle, instead of arrows, it's got golf clubs. And in the other, it's got some other spoof item, I forget what if. And it actually has two eagle heads looking in both directions, which, as you're probably aware, is a symbol that goes back to many authoritarian societies, including Nazi Germany and including ancient Rome. Well, little bit of a whoopsie. Somebody got hold of that seal, and nobody knows exactly how it happened. It wound up being used on a projected screen behind President Trump, who didn't pick up on the fact that that was not really his presidential seal. So I understand that somebody's been fired over the situation, but it is a little embarrassing. Okay, we got to take a break for station identification. We'll be right back after these few words. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here, hour number 3. The phone lines are open, 800-313-9443. And we're talking about our domestic politics. Now, One America News, or their lawyers, to be more accurate, have sent cease and desist notices to MSNBC, Rachel Maddow, and the Daily Beast, and especially the Daily Beast reporter Kevin Poulsen, over repeated claims that One America News is a paid Russian propaganda operation. And the notices are saying that if they do not retract these spurious claims, they will be sued for defamation. And that would be a very, very good thing. There was a day where the corporate media could say whatever they want, and there was a principle called absence of malice, by which they were pretty much above the law. And amazingly enough, it was the National Enquirer and a lawsuit brought by, I think it was Cher. No, it was Carol Burnett. I'm sorry, it was Carol Burnett. And prior to that, I mean, the National Enquirer was a real rag with stories about space aliens and everything. And they would do a lot of celebrity news, and very often the celebrity news was filled with non-facts. Most celebrities didn't care. Just seeing their name in print would send them into ecstasy. But apparently, the National Enquirer made a factually inaccurate comment about Carol Burnett, and she sued them, and she won. And it set a new standard for defamation. And by the way, ever since then, the National Enquirer is a little bit more careful about their reporting. So these days, it's almost like the corporate media has gone back to those early days of the National Enquirer. They can scream whatever they want to make up about conservatives, and nothing bad will happen. So I have no idea if One American News is a Russian propaganda machine or not. Paid Russian propaganda machine. I mean, heck, I've been accused of being a paid Russian propagandist. I've yet to see a check from a Moscow bank, just for your information. So they're saying if these media outlets do not comply with the conditions by August 15th, they're going to be sued. Okay, now this one I have to agree with. This was stupid. There are these little black rag dolls that are designed to be slammed against the wall as a stress reliever. And yeah, that was, I don't know what somebody was thinking when they did that. Should have had them in all colors. Now, back when we were working on Final Fantasy, there was a variation of this that was in all the stores. I forget what the name of them were, but they had little batteries and motion sensors inside, and when you slammed them against the wall, they'd scream and yell and say, "Hey, please don't do that." And that actually was a lot of fun. But to have this entire line as black rag dolls, I can understand why people would be outraged. I wouldn't join any protests about it myself, but I understand why they're upset. All right, do you remember all the way back in January, boy, it seems like so long ago, there was this Kentucky high school group, I think it was, and they were sort of harassed by this Native American activist at the Lincoln Memorial, and the Washington Post reported the story and reported it to make the Native American activists look sympathetic and to defame these Kentucky teenagers. And so they filed a lawsuit, and a judge has just thrown the lawsuit out. So, got to protect that Washington Post. Turning to the international news here, a little bit of a question. Where in Afghanistan did $35 billion go? Well, yeah, I know. It was just sitting here just a minute ago. Apparently, out of the $56 billion that the Department of Defense has spent on Afghanistan's reconstruction, only $21 billion can be properly accounted for. The rest of it, $35 billion, hey, no idea. The $35 billion discrepancy is revealed in a new report from the Special Inspector General for Afghanistan Reconstruction. And their core mission is to prevent and detect waste, fraud, and abuse in the Afghanistan aid program. Yet the Pentagon is out there claiming that it would be extremely labor-intensive to compile information on exactly how the remaining $35 billion has been used. In other words, the Pentagon siphoned it off for some other kind of a weapons program or to cover the cost of some other war. We're going to do a shout-out now to our on-air affiliates who are just now rejoining our network. Now, this one, unless you know the real backstory, this is going to sound like it's a good idea. They're talking about how the U.S. has spent more than $50 million, that's with an M, on drug treatment programs in Afghanistan, but these programs are losing money and may not even be working. And this is another report from the Special Inspector General for Afghanistan Reconstruction. And they're saying it's just impossible to gauge the effectiveness of the programs. Overall, we just found the State Department failed to create performance standards and requirements for these programs. Now, the background for all of this is you need to understand there are elements within the U.S. government which are making money off of Afghan opium. The American pharmaceutical corporations are making money off Afghan opium. The opium is flowing. And those who are making money from that opium don't want things to change at all. And so any pretense at trying to counter that is exactly that, a pretense. And it reminded me of this video that was put out many years ago by a gentleman named Bo Greitz, and it was called America Betrayed. And it was about how the U.S. government, specifically the CIA, was making a fortune smuggling Vietnamese heroin, actually Burmese heroin, back into the United States inside cargo, including dead bodies returning from Vietnam to the United States. They would actually stop over here in Hawaii, and that corrupted Hawaii's government. So there was a big hue and cry. Oh, we've got a drug problem in the United States of America. It's just pouring into the black neighborhoods, and all these black kids are becoming heroin addicts. What shall we do? What shall we do? And Bo Greitz laid out the story of how the U.S. government basically ponied up a nice chunk of cash, ostensibly to fight the opium dealers up in Kun Sa's territory. It was deep, deep, deep in the jungle. It took days to reach there on donkeys. And they were going to take this money and they were going to give Kun Sa what for. And ultimately, it turned out what the money was actually used for was to build a nice paved highway that went right up to the door of Kun Sa's heroin plantation, to make deliveries much easier, more convenient, and to make sure that heroin arrived to market and that garden-picked fresh flavor. So we have to be careful about when they say we're spending money to deal with the drug problem. Really? Or are you spending our money under the guise of dealing with the drug problem to actually make a little bit more money on your investment? Over in Iran, Britain is trying to bring pressure to bear on Iran over the captured ship, and Britain is now trying to shame Iran, having quite probably lied about exactly what led to the seizure. Iran is still insisting the British tanker was out of the transit lane and hit a fishing boat. But Britain told Iran that if it wants to come out of the dark, see, you're in the dark now. That's the implication of that. You're in the dark. We're the light. You're the dark. So Britain told Iran that if it wants to come out of the dark, it must follow international rules and release a British-flagged oil tanker seized by its forces in the Gulf. Well, if that tanker was out of the safe traffic lane, it was in violation of international rules. Now, Iran came on out and said, look, this is getting tiresome. Let's just do a tanker swap. A swap. We'll give you the one that we grabbed in our territorial waters, and you give us back ours that you grabbed in international waters. And Great Britain said, no, you do what we want first. Rather interesting little article over here in Haaretz. Netanyahu's Iran dilemma, getting Trump to act without putting Israel in the front line. Well, I don't know, we could just maybe go on out and have unmarked Israeli planes and boats shoot up a U.S. ship and claim that Iran did it. It almost worked the last time. So, last Friday was the 68th march of the Great March of Return. Israel, as usual, is continuing to use unrelenting extreme violence. 39 demonstrators were shot with live ammunition. 1 were killed. And at least 30 children, 3 women and a paramedic were among those injured. 39 civilians were shot with live bullets. 4 of them sustained moderate to serious wounds. Now, these are against unarmed protesters. Meanwhile, Netanyahu, and I don't know if that's his way to try and get the wars going again, or if it's just campaign rhetoric, but he's out there boasting of the hundreds of anti-Iran ops Israel has carried out in Syria. Meanwhile, of course, Russia is out there saying, look, you've got to respect other nations' sovereignty as well. You can't just have this attitude of our borders are sacred and yours are not, and we can go wherever we want. Meanwhile, up in Alaska, Israel and the United States carried out a test of Israel's Arrow 3 long-range missile defense system. And the tests were conducted at the Pacific Spaceport Complex in Kodiak. And they're saying the tests were successful, and it helps with confidence in Israel's ability to defeat the developing threats in the home region. Now, I wonder how much of the development of the Arrow 3 was from Israel's pocket or was funded one way or the other by the United States taxpayer. Over in India, they have launched the first ever space war drill to defend their satellites. They're concerned that if war comes to the region, that their satellites could be under threat from anti-satellite weapons coming from China. So India has decided the first domain of warfare to defend is low Earth orbit. Now, I've already mentioned before why I think this is a really, really bad idea for anybody to be engaging in actual warfare in low Earth orbit. And even the graphic that they had along with this story, when it showed, enemy weapon destroyed, there were multiple objects streaming out in front of it saying debris from destroyed device. And that debris is exactly the problem. It's not going to just continue in that same orbit as the original incoming threat was. It's going to fan out in all directions. And yes, some will burn up in the atmosphere. But much of it is just going to fan out into new orbits, which are going to be unstable, unpredictable. And they'll smash into other satellites, smashing them into debris. And then that debris will smash other debris. This could be a real epic disaster. Now, Wall Street Journal came on out with an article on how North Korea had probably produced 12 more nuclear weapons since the first Trump-Kim meeting in Singapore last year. Oh my goodness, North Korea is producing nuclear weapons. How dare they? It's a horrible thing. Well, as it turns out, it was another piece of fake news. It was based on a claim that simply did not pan out. Okay. Over in Hong Kong, the riots are continuing. They're having a rough time over there. One interesting little embarrassment, if you will. The Hong Kong police managed to tear gas themselves because they forgot that you are supposed to be upwind of your intended target. I bet they won't make that mistake another time. So let's talk about the economic news here, because there are some red warning signs out there on the horizon. Deutsche Bank, we've been talking about Deutsche Bank a lot. They've just gone through a major restructuring. They've let go thousands and thousands of their employees. They're spinning off some of their prior activities, and they're just quitting. And it was reported last week they're sitting on a $40 trillion book of derivatives contracts. That turned out to be less than accurate. It's actually $53.5 trillion of derivatives. If the economy, when the economy turns south and those derivatives come due, Deutsche Bank will evaporate. It'll pop like a soap bubble. Meanwhile, JP Morgan, Barclays, and RBS are among the big banks facing a British class action lawsuit over rigging of the Forex. So, yeah, the bankers, they're crooks. Don't let those suits fool you. It's all an illusion. Apparently, the trade war initiated last year by the United States is costing the global economy dearly. And as the data comes in from the second quarter, the harm manifests itself in different ways across the globe. Distilling a single narrative about why and how the trade war has harmed world economics is nearly impossible. But we're certainly seeing it here in the United States, where farmers and who were selling or exporting to China, they've lost their marketplace. It's a bad idea. Now, over on the other side of the economy, apparently, last year, 22 central banks, largely in Europe, bought the largest amount of gold. Mostly in Russia, bought the largest amount of gold since 1967, the year the London gold pool collapsed. And the gold repatriations we've seen over the last few years are another sign that we are reaching the end of 4 decades of monetary calm. So the whole point of this article is that the United States, the European Union, and China will revalue gold in a new de facto gold standard. So they're going to just declare a flat global price and say, this is it, no more global marketplace. They're going to lock the economy down. If you are a university student in Alaska heading into the fall semester, you might want to check with your financial arrangements, because apparently the state of Alaska has stopped funding the Alaska Performance Scholarships as of the 9th of this month. And so a lot of students depended on that money. It's not going to be there. We'll be right back after these few words. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. And once again, Republic Broadcasting needs your help. And the postal address where you can send a check, money order, or if you prefer anonymity cash, is Republic Broadcasting Network, 2251 Double Creek Drive, number 302, Round Rock, Texas, 78664. The phone number where you can make a credit or debit card donation or pledge to be a recurring subscriber is 800-724-2719, extension 1 during business hours, extension 3 at all other times. Well, I was looking at the Fox News feed, and it looks like there's been another confrontation between Iran's Republican Guard Corps and a British warship that was supposedly escorting a tanker. Now, this confrontation was in words only, but it shows just how tense things have become. Over in Great Britain, and specifically in London, Selfridges, one of their high-end department stores, has already opened its Christmas shop 149 days before Christmas. They're offering luxury items like 2,000 British pound sterling Christmas trees, David Bowie ornaments. That's just really out there. I sometimes have problems with some of the Hallmark ornaments. You know, because I grew up at a time when Christmas was about Christmas. And the high-end Hallmark ornaments. They've now split into two branches, the stuff that is in the Hallmark stores, and then the hoi polloi that gets farmed out to places like pharmacies and department stores. Some of them are made very well. Some are very cute. I have some of the early ones still in my ornament collection. I think I got to haul that out and get that ready for the move. But this tendency lately to allow branded themed ornaments to dominate the decorations, I'm sorry, doesn't that kind of blur what Christmas is supposed to be like? What it's supposed to be about? And I'm not talking about, baby Jesus and the rest of it, but, snowmen and winter and community. Now, we have a rule on our Christmas tree, for those of you who are interested, which we may get one this year just because we're in Indiana and they're going to be local and cheap. But everything that's hung on the tree has to tell the story of part of our life. We don't have gratuitous ornaments that have no meaning. You can crawl all around that tree and they'll say, "What the heck is this?" Well, I'll tell you where we got that. Anyway, we have another call. Dustin from New Jersey. What's on your mind?
Mike, I'm calling back. I know you don't take secondary calls usually. I got to respond, first of all, to Britain with the Christmas this early. Well, this explains what's going on in the economy when they got to put stuff out this early, like at Walmart, which would be in, September?
Yep.
Yeah, something's going on in the economy if they got to put Dave Bowie specialty Christmas trees out, at this point in time. But Britain's not in good shape. We know that with Brexit and the rest, but Mike, I'm going to respond to, somebody said I'm whining. Since when is whining calling in to explain what's going on? I don't understand how am I whining to try to tell people what Trump is not doing? That's not whining, that's the truth. Isn't whining calling in saying he's doing a great job when he's not doing squat? I don't understand.
Whining may not have been an appropriate word to use, and I should have picked up on it, but we were, getting to the end of the phone call. But I do think that if you were to take more time to think about what you're going to say before you say it, because I don't know if you're aware of this or not, very often you'll start a sentence, get about halfway through, then you'll leap onto something else, and that leaves a lot of people very confused.
And I do that.
Yes.
I get so angry, though, Mike. See, I just did it. You know why? Because I voted for Trump. Mike, when he won, when he was coming down, the media, they all were against him. They all had the statistics, 90% with Hillary, remember?
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and I was with them, they played the music and this or that, and but then nothing's happened. It really took me for a turn there.
All right, well, listen, Dustin,
Okay.
got to take another commercial break. Stay on the line. Going to put you on hold. Going to come right back to you after these words from our sponsors. Aloha, America. Welcome back to our show here. We're talking with Dustin Hoffman here. I'm sorry, Dustin in New Jersey. What am I thinking? Didn't get any sleep last night. And before I put Dustin on the microphone, I want to read this email that just came on in. I agree totally with Dustin. I'm so tired of Hollywood, Thanksgiving, and Christmas decorations out at Walmart already. It makes me leave there crabby. They've already stripped all of our summer floral apparel. It is way too early is right. And let us up in the frozen north have a bit of a reprieve, please. And I'm in agreement. And again, going back to when I was young, which was admittedly a long time ago, Christmas season was basically the month of December. Macy's came on in, establishing the tradition that Santa Claus would ride in on the last float of the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, and that was the start of the Christmas shopping season, and all the decorations would go up, and that was fine. And for us kids, it was exciting. And for us, it really began when we began Christmas vacation, which was usually about 2 weeks around the holidays, and we could actually get to go on down and see the decorations and see Santa Claus. And it was all focused on that experience of being Christmas, as opposed to just hearing a weird sound in the background, as opposed to today, where Christmas has now become a framework on which other commercial appeals are being hung. Stars from the latest movies, cars, products, whatever. It's ridiculous. Now, in some cases, these ornaments can actually have meaning for people. And I remember one year they came out with this little tiny locomotive ornament, little N-gauge locomotive, and the locomotive was stamped with the logo of the Milwaukee Road, which it was a railway company. And I happened to know somebody at the time, retired, who had worked on the Milwaukee Road. And so that was an appropriate ornament to get to him. And so
I'm not Dustin Hoffman with Marathon Man and get my teeth pulled out.
I'm sorry, it was a malaprop here, and apologies to Dustin Hoffman fans here. I'm a huge admirer. But anyway, go on.
Yeah. Mike, you're right though. Like with Christmas, there's no holiday that's like great anymore. Like everything's commercialized.
Yeah.
Everything is just like Me Too movement. What's good to like anymore? I feel like I'm whining, Mike, but I'm not, because is anything decent anymore? Like, I don't know.
Decent is a very gray word, because it means different things to different people. But the part that always gets me is that when I go down to the local Safeway, whatever the next holiday that's coming up, the stuff is already on the shelves there. We just barely get out of Christmas and Easter, Valentine's Day is up. We get past Valentine's Day, Easter is up. And I'm expecting to start seeing stuff for Halloween any minute now.
But does it make anybody better? Give it like an Easter gift or a Christmas or a pack of cigarettes. You know what I mean? Like what about like giving people some knowledge of what's going on? Like that's the greatest gift of them all. Like your show is great, Mike. Like you, Zero Hedge, the Duran. There's like very few, websites or internet YouTubers doing anything of giving people knowledge of what's going on and, of what's going on in the world.
Well, it's all about the retailers trying to save themselves, because most retailers, and we're even talking, this was true 20 years ago, without that Christmas holiday shopping season, the retailers would be running in the red. They literally depend on whipping up a Christmas shopping frenzy to put them into the green for the year. And as the consumer economy has continued to decline, the retailers they're getting the flogs out even harder and earlier. And we're going to start seeing the Christmas stuff in stores pretty much, starting now. July is a little early. I thought it was a little out of control when they were in August. But for me, when they hang up the Christmas decorations in September, by the time we get down to Christmas itself, they're no longer decorations, they're decor, and they're very tacky. And it almost dilutes the Christmas experience. That's
what you just said. It's decor, Mike. That's all it is. do anybody feel happier, after the holidays? It's the same. The same every year.
Yeah.
Nothing's changed, But, all right, Mike, have a good show. Thanks for taking my second call. Have a good night.
All right, thanks an awful lot. We're going to let you go here. And, yeah, actually, modern Christmases are very stressful. A lot of people dealing with anxieties. Can I keep up? Can I spend as much as my neighbor on Christmas gifts? And it should come as no surprise that suicides in this country tend to spike around Christmas and New Year's. Because like everything else in this country, it's been turned into a racket. Now, I'm a big fan of Charlie Brown, Charles Schulz, and I think he really hit it on his head with the Charlie Brown Christmas special, where Charlie Brown was dealing with that anxiety and just wanting to do everything that was supposed to be done. I have to do this. I have to have this over there. I have to this over here. And no, it's not supposed to be an obligation, economic or social. So anyway, getting on back to immigration, Trump has won a major victory on the wall from the United States Supreme Court. We had a caller who talked about this at the top of the show. And the Supreme Court has removed restrictions put in place by a lower court which had stopped the administration's plans to use Pentagon funds to the tune of $2.5 billion to build a barrier wall on the southern border between the United States and Mexico. And the decision was split along ideological lines, but it allows the administration to move ahead with plans to use military funds to replace existing fencing in California. See, there it is right there. Replace existing fencing in California, Arizona, and New Mexico with more robust fencing. They're not building new wall. Anyway. Now, Democratic presidential candidate Julian Castro was asked why he's hypercritical of Trump's border policies when he once lauded similar actions conducted under Obama. And Castro supports decriminalizing illegal entry and re-entry into the United States and believes words such as alien and illegal alien are offensive. Well, what part of illegal do you not like? So Castro, during the unearthed 2013 congressional hearing, could not answer if illegal alien gang members should be removed from the country. Over in Great Britain, talk about working at cross purposes. British taxpayers paid millions of dollars to lawyers who successfully fought British government attempts to deport suspected terrorists and illegal aliens. It really is crazy. All right, a former private secretary to the Queen, who has been knighted 4 times and elevated to the peerage, may be on his way to being the British ambassador to the United States of America. Christopher Guide, he's 57 years old. He's on a short list of 3 to replace Sir Kim Darroch in Washington. And Lord Gage served as Her Majesty's right-hand man for 7 years, but was removed from the post 2 years ago amid claims of a power struggle between Buckingham Palace and Clarence House over the succession. Now, this one is just ugly. Apparently, up in Germany, at a train station, there was an Eritrean migrant who, for no reason anybody can understand, shoved an 8-year-old boy and his mother into an oncoming high-speed train at the Frankfurt railway station. Now, they've arrested the guy, and maybe he just thinks that Germany's prisons are going to be a much more comfortable place to spend the rest of his life than going back to Eritrea. Going back to the mailbox here, He's saying, Dustin and the holidays, at this point, I think the only solution is to A, everyone of like mind start and move to remote communities and rural areas where everyone agrees not to watch, listen to, or read any mainstream media at all. Well, more and more people are doing that as anyway. Take a bunch of 90-year-olds with you who still remember what Christmas, Easter, Halloween, and Thanksgiving were like in the 1930s and make them your directors of culture and holidays decorating. Otherwise, it's just about impossible to avoid corporate America's revisionist steamroller, to which I would add profit centers. That's really what it's all about. Figuring out a way to just get you to want to buy one more Christmas decoration, one more Christmas present. Get that last kopeck out of your pocket. The last several holiday shopping seasons have been epic disasters. And in the following Januaries, we've seen many iconic retailers go out of business or go to online only. Now, up in Seattle, and I'm going to tell you right now, this is not a joke. A city councilman in Seattle is trying to stop hosing the sidewalks free of human excrement, because he thinks it's being racially insensitive. Because of the use of those hoses, it's going to remind people of the hoses used against civil rights activists. And so for that reason, we should just go on letting the poop sit there in the sun and ferment and be extremely odoriferous. Now that's carrying this political correctness a little too far. Senator Kamala Harris, front-runner in the Democratic nominating contest for president, recently announced a plan, People Over Profit, to try and solve the nation's ongoing crisis regarding the ever-rising prices of pharmaceutical drugs. The provision courting the most national attention and controversy is a proposed hard cap on prescription drug prices. Now, this cap would be set by the Department of Health and Human Services and prescription drug companies that raise prices faster than inflation or higher than prices in comparable nations such as Germany and Japan would find themselves capped. Well, that's one way to go about it. The other is to basically go back to the original system for patents, not to mention copyrights, that were limited. They were set up to let the inventor of a product or the creator of a creative work make some money off of their efforts, then allow the created work to pass into the general public domain, to benefit all of society together. And that was a good and fair way to handle it. And unfortunately, both in the case of copyright, thanks to the Disney lawsuit, and in the case of patents, it's been completely changed around to where copyright is forever and patents can be kept going forever. And once you create an artificial market exclusivity, you can just charge whatever you want. Up in New York, they've just decriminalized marijuana. I remember when I mentioned that it had just been decriminalized here, and somebody said, don't worry, by the time you're in Indiana, it'll be decriminalized there. I'm not really concerned. It's been years since I did any of that. But apparently they just decriminalized it in New York. And apparently California, Massachusetts, Vermont, and even Maine have passed bills legalizing the drugs. Apparently the thing that kept New York from doing it till now was termed as minor ideological differences. Okay, beginning Thursday in the state of New Jersey, terminally ill patients will be allowed to decide if it's time to die. Apparently, physician-assisted suicide has become legal there. Something people need to be concerned about when traveling. Apparently, this New Jersey woman came home from a vacation. They used Uber, and basically they caught an Uber ride from Philadelphia International Airport to go home. But apparently the driver made a wrong turn and said, "Can I erase that turn because I don't want it on my record?" So this woman foolishly handed over her Uber app, and when she got home, discovered that this guy had given a 5-star review on himself as well as a $100 tip. So you got to be very careful about that. I've noticed here at the Hawaii's ground transportation, they actually have a sign for an Uber parking stall. I guess it really is big business around here. Getting into the world of computers, this one is a little scary. We need to keep an eye on it. It's Senate Bill 1273. And basically, this is a bill working its way through Congress that basically changes how copyright claims are processed, would create a system to impose fines of up to $30,000 who shares protected material online. And that includes memes, which used to be considered derivative works. All right, we got to take a break for commercials. Back for the last segment of our program today after these few words. Aloha, America. Welcome back to the show here. And we're talking about this legislation moving through Congress. And if Donald Trump really did want to repay the independent media for our assistance to him in 2016, which I don't think he cares anymore, this would be one that he would veto. And basically, it would make it easier to sue anyone who sends a meme or post images they didn't create themselves. It's essentially a giveaway to lawyers who sue unsuspecting suckers for a living. Now, when I was growing up, if you will, if you took a work that had previously been in the public domain and you altered it, that was called not eminent domain, public domain. Was you were basically allowed to create works from components of other works. But apparently they want to change that now. And it's all about scaring people from trying to get the truth out about what's going on in our political systems, because memes are one of the most powerful forms of communication. Somebody takes a picture of a known politician and they put a speech bubble up above it, and they may decorate it with other items, and they put it on out there. People go, ha, 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 and they forward it along, and it goes viral. And clearly we're in an era where governments and corporations want the internet brought to heel, to shut it down, turn it into just another content delivery platform. All right, we've got time for one more phone call. Rob in New Orleans. Aloha, Rob. Welcome to the show. What's on your mind?
Hi, Mike. I've been meaning to call you for quite a while. I've been listening to you for years. You're basically my evening news channel.
Thank you.
So I wanted to thank you. And I wanted to say to Dustin in New Jersey, Dustin is a great caller, and I don't understand either why people would sort of attack him. I haven't heard him say too much that's not right on. And I'll do a little whining here. I think the whole entire system is under blackmail ever since 9/11.
I agree.
Mueller, I've called it years ago. I said, this whole thing, the way people act, the news anchors, it looks like a blackmail thing, because you got people talking in a very unnatural way, even if you assume they're really incompetent or evil or whatever, it still doesn't really add up. I would never listen to anybody for too long that's not hip to the whole 9/11 thing, because that means their foundation is way off.
Yeah,
And
I
think
see what
they
you're
got-
saying here. But, you can lead them to the promised land yourself if you're careful about it. Anyway, Rob, I got to let you go. The music is playing. It's time for this show to end. I need to get on out and get some packing done. So please stay tuned for John Stadmiller. I'm sure he's got lots of interesting things to share with you. Please take what you learn here and share with everybody that you know. Donate to Republic Broadcasting. Donate to whatreallyhappened.com. We'll be back tomorrow. Aloha, America.